General thoughts were pretty good on defense, not good enough on offense.
Did the not good enough on offense? I know you said it the other night that it had to do with just missing a lot of shots. Obviously, you missed shots, but were they as many good shots as you initially thought? Because I know Tuesday you kind of felt like maybe you had some good looks and they just weren't going.
Yeah, it was about. I mean, they weren't all good, or they weren't all as good as we'd like. But I mean, I think when you play the best defenses and some of the better teams, then that's not like the expectation necessarily. So, we'd always like to get better shots. It's a little bit of both. Some that were more difficult, where their defense deserves credit for some of the shots that we ended up with, and then some others that I think we would normally make and didn't.
I know they're like 6'7" across the roster. They have length on that perimeter. How much of that was what led to the low assist number, and then kind of combine that with Wyoming's actually number one in the country in defensive assist rate, and I'm curious what they do differently, or do they do a lot of the same things in terms of preventing the ball movement?
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities there in style in terms of what they allow, what they force. Like you said, Wyoming's the number one in the country in fewest assists allowed, so they force you to create your own offense a little bit, and we'll have to find ways to do that in places where we can get our guys in positions of strength, and then also not be try to find our own offense. Like, we don't want to just resign ourselves to like we're just going to play one-on-one every time.
I know you've said before you're not going to foul a guy out. The 2 fouls in the first half, some coaches do the auto bench. You don't. This is the second time now that Tomasov's picked up 3 fouls in the first half. The VCU one was right at the end of the half. This one was a little bit earlier, but it was around the 3-minute mark. He picked up the third foul. For people that sort of question the even playing the player, can you explain your philosophy on why a player with 2 fouls in the first half is still in the game?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to play our best players the maximum amount that we can. So VCU, for example, we put him in for the last possession of the game. I think it was like 9-10 seconds left, right? So, and I understand the thought process of like why that would, be questionable or whatever. But do you have the same question when he starts the second half? Because it's 10 seconds later in the game, right? So generally, in my mind, there's no difference between 20 minutes and 9 seconds left in the game or 20 minutes left in the game. We're trying to maximize the amount of time those guys are on the floor. It's not exactly this simple, but all possessions being equal, we want them to play the most possessions possible. Tomislav still, I don't think he ended up fouling out of the game. Maybe in either one of those instances that he got his third in the first. So, I think if you say, a guy gets his second foul, Dayton got it with 15 minutes to go in the first half. If I bench him for 15 minutes and he plays his regular rotation in the second half, now I've artificially limited the number of minutes that he could play relative to versus him just doing that based on fouls. So it's really just we want to maximize the amount of time that our guys are on the floor. And, there's going to be times where, they get in some foul trouble and we have to navigate that, or maybe their minutes do end up a little bit, limited, but we don't want that. We want them to play as many of their minutes as possible and not worry about I think you see a lot of times guys end up with 2 fouls early in the game and they finish with 3 or they don't, and if you sit them for 15 minutes because they have 2, in my mind, that's a missed opportunity to play some of your better players.
Coach, just taking a look at Wyoming offensively, some good guards. What do you see in them?
Yeah, really deep team. They play like 12 guys, so we have to do a good job understanding personnel and being prepared for that. Walker and Meyer, pretty dynamic offensively, have had some big games individually. Guys that we certainly are aware of that probably have outsized usage relative to the other 10 that they play. And good team, really well coached. They play really hard. They compete. It's impressive the way they compete, for 40 minutes. And, with their depth, we understand what we're in for, and it's a 40-minute fight.
I understand you want to bounce back. Every winning conference is huge, but kind of talk about the importance of protecting the home floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. we have a home court advantage here, and we want to make sure that we take care of our business at home. I think if you can just have a really good performance at home in conference, you set yourself up to be in the mix, right? Like if, win at home, split on the road is sort of the old adage of like how you contend in a conference. Like if you do that, you're probably in the mix. And so we feel like we're capable of that. So, prefer to do even better than splitting on the road, but like that's generally kind of the recipe.
So one thing Wyoming's not good at on defense is fouling. So how do you make a point to get into the bonus early? I know you mentioned their depth, so foul participation is really not that big of a deal for them. But how do you make a point to get to the foul line early?
I think it's just be physical drivers of the basketball, make good end to drive decisions, utilize shot fake, pivot, create angles for yourself so you can try to score or get fouled around the basket. We want to get in the paint. I think that was, something we maybe didn't do quite enough of in the last one. We would like to get to the free throw line more. Some of that's, how the game is called each time, and we have to adjust to that. But, it just starts with our aggression and rim pressure.
Jake and Uriah, tough game for them against Boise State. They've kind of struggled shooting the basketball the last 3 games. I think Uriah's 1 for 12 from deep, and Jake's 4 from 22 from the three-point line. Have other teams kind of prioritized them on the scouting report? Is that just some freshman struggles? Like, what do you see in that's accounting for their lack of productivity from the three-point line?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's probably something to them kind of making their way up the scouting report as we go through, and they continue to play well. Like that's something I think every player and their evolution kind of feels as they play good basketball and defenses shift towards them. But some of it's just kind of the way basketball seasons go. Nobody shoots the ball the same the whole way. It's kind of this up and down thing throughout the season, and there'll be games where they make shots, there'll be games where they miss shots, and I think it's important for them to understand, for everyone to understand that makes and misses can't dictate your performance, and we have to continue to find other ways to impact the game outside of that when the ball's not going in. But we want those guys to keep shooting. We feel really good about where those things will end up over the course of the whole season.
You talked about Walker and Meyer kind of being the guys that make Wyoming go, but they're pretty good off the bench as well. Guys like Uriah Rojas and some of the other guys that Haruko, who plays pretty well off the bench too. How do you guys approach just preparing for a team that's so deep?
Yeah, it just we gotta have good focus in our preparation. I think something that I think something that's been a strength for us has been our preparation. Assistant coaches, our coaching staff's doing a great job in the preparation. I think our guys feel prepared every time, but every team is different. So some teams play fewer guys, run more action. Some teams run less, play more. Like there's always a different kind of approach to each individual team with how we prepare. And so this one, there's a lot of personnel involved, and we'll have to understand it and stay focused in those assignments.
So the importance of the getting into the paint, when you run into defenders and teams even that are really good at preventing you getting those paint touches, does the end of drive decision still come into play then, even though it's not in the paint? And is there other things that you kind of look to exploit?
Yeah, hopefully we're still getting in the paint. We felt like we were in the paint a fair amount. I think we had over 20 rim attempts against Boise State. So we were there. We didn't necessarily finish them the way that we want to, and part of that's their defense. So, end of drive decisions are always going to be, critical to what we're doing, right? End of drive decision and shooting are kind of the two things, like every game, regardless of scenario, like those are vital parts of what we're doing and what we emphasize. And so, we have to find ways, we have to find solutions to get in the paint. I think that, I could have done a better job of trying to provide some solutions in the last one to try to help those guys get in better situations. So we'll evaluate that stuff going forward, but every time we're always trying to, get in the paint. End of drive decisions are always going to be critical for us.
Coach, we were talking about this just before you walked in here, but during the broadcast, one of the announcers picked up on how Boise State, when a play was being sent in from the sidelines, these guys would flip open their gym shorts, and there's obviously a play sheet sewn into their shorts. And it speaks to maybe the complicated nature of how some teams relay information to their players. What's it like for you guys? Are you one of these analytical types where you're constantly sending in plays, and how does that work for you?
No, I mean we don't necessarily do it that way. I did notice that in the game where they would, for the baseline out of bounds, they would kind of check their waistbands. I know in the past Boise's had like the cards they hold up and they run, and you see some teams with the board that they write the call on as they go up the floor. We don't call as many plays. Like, we're a little more conceptual in how we play and read and react, and players make decisions. That's a general. Like, we do run plays, but like that's a general approach. So, we want guys to have a little more freedom, or at least in my mind, have more freedom than the structure of that many set plays. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. You know what I mean? That's not critical of anyone else in their style, because I think there's a lot of different ways, and a lot of really good basketball teams play differently. So I think that's part of the fun of the matchups and things like that. But no, we don't run, as many set plays, and we just, try to conceptually execute different things based on where the ball goes, where it's passed, decisions that they make on the floor.
I talked to Sonny a couple weeks ago, and he said that one thing they really strive for in how they play all their 12 players is to get to a third page, get another page on the scouting report, and just make teams prepare for them a little bit more because of how many players they're playing on a regular basis. Did he succeed? Is Wyoming a team that you do have to spend just a little bit more time on the scouting report because they do play 12 deep?
I mean, the personnel section is longer, yeah.
In terms of health, I guess we got two guys that were sick the other day. Asked about Tomaslav's hamstring, Chris's oblique and flu, and Tomao's flu.
Tomaslav felt good after the game. Practiced with no limitation yesterday, so I don't expect any limitations there. And then Chris was back in the building yesterday. I don't know about who will be here today. I haven't spoken to Rob yet about everybody's status.
And then Tomeo as well, that falls under that as far as the flu.
Tomeo was not here yesterday. He stayed home again, but based on text messages, I think he may be here, but I haven't seen him yet.
Okay. And then the last one I was going to ask you is just not exactly the game before Christmas, but you guys don't exactly have a great record on New Year's, the first game of the New Year either. You guys have lost 8 in a row until last year, so you guys have lost like 8 of your last 9 on the first game of the year. This time of year in general, when there is no classes in session, what makes maybe this time a little more challenging? I think people think it's easier because there's no classes. Is this time of year challenging with people kind of coming back from holiday and all that?
I didn't know we had that kind of streak.
I'll find out.
Yeah, I learned about a streak we don't love up in Boise too. So I'm learning all kinds of stuff as we go about how we've done historically in different situations. But I don't think this is a challenge. I think this is a fun part of the year where it's really just kind of basketball, and guys are able to focus, spend extra time on whatever that is, whether that's maybe getting a few extra shots up, guys who have injuries or things they can, have a little more flexibility in their schedule to rehab. So, I expect us to play good basketball.
One more. Coach, I'm just curious, do you have a New Year's resolution?
Yeah, I'd love to eliminate controllable turnovers.
Coach, just a quick one. There was an appeal in that game, in the Boise State game. I think Luke Haupt got fouled when he was setting a screen for Antonio, and the shot went in for Antonio, but you called it an appeal. I was just kind of curious the difference between a challenge and an appeal and how that one worked out.
Yeah, so a lot of those are based on the rules of what's like reviewable relative to using a challenge or just like auto reviewable. And honestly, I'm not an expert in that and have it all figured out. But on that one, they were just looking to see like when the foul occurred relative to when he like started his shooting motion, I think. So
similar to that, did you see Drew Fielder trying to wave off Leon taking that one appeal, and then he was wrong. Have you ever seen a player try and wave off the coach like that?
I've seen him kind of tell the bench like, no, that was off me, or like we try to communicate with our players when we aren't sure, like, hey, did you touch it? Should we, I don't know that I've seen the player say, no, it was off me, and then they challenge it anyway. But, they might have just wanted to use the time out there and figure, at that stage in the game, like the challenge is you're limited, so you want to use them like when they have value late in the game like that. What are the odds you're going to have another scenario where you're going to need it, especially as the team who's ahead there? Like, I get why you just try and hope that it's right, and the timeout probably could have used anyway. That would be my guess. Like, I don't know. Obviously, I haven't talked about it.
What I thought was weird about that one was he's like, no, guys, no, it was off me. And then he was wrong. The player was wrong. They upheld it, that it was their ball.
No, Fielder was saying it was off him, and it was our ball, and then they reviewed it, and Fielder was right, and it stayed our ball.
Yeah, I think the first thing is we got good looks a lot of the time. They just didn't go in, which is unfortunate, but it happens. And second is we still gave ourselves a chance to win that game without shooting it well on the road in a tough environment against a good team. So that gives us a little bit of confidence there, where if we handle our business on the other end of the ball, we still have a chance to come out and win that game. We had a chance even without doing that. So obviously unfortunate missed opportunity, but taking confidence in, we know we're still a really good team, and we did some things on the other end of the ball that led to winning. We just didn't finish it.
You've had a chance to get in the starting lineup. In a sense, maybe this is an audition tape for you to maybe crack the starting five. How do you think you've done in terms of your own play?
I would say I don't really look at it like that. We love Chris. We need Chris on this team. We need him to play well. We need him healthy. I just look at it as I'm trying to do my job every time I'm out there. So whether I'm starting, coming off the bench, I'm going to play the same way, and hopefully I help the team win.
So I understand conference play, obviously you want to get a win every time out and coming off the loss, but also just protecting home court. How important is that for you?
That's huge. You protect home court, you give yourself 10 wins. And then you take some games on the road, and you're going to put yourself in a position to win the conference. So yeah, protecting home court, protecting this court in front of our fans, and it's a tough place to play, as you guys all know. So these fans give us an advantage. The altitude gives us an advantage. So we should hopefully be able to take care of business out here in New Mexico.
Just from your perspective, how do you think you guys match up?
Yeah, I think we match up well. They have some dynamic guards. We have some dynamic guards. We're a really good team, as I hope you guys have seen so far. And so I think we match up well against everybody, and we just have to come out here and play our game and prove that.
You guys were, I know you said you guys missed some shots. Eric said the same, coach said the same thing on Tuesday night, but you guys really seemed to me to have a hard time getting the ball down to Tomislav. He had 6 baskets, 5 were unassisted. And for a big man who doesn't start the offense, that's, usually a big man is going to have a few more assists on his main baskets. Do you feel like you guys had trouble getting the ball inside against Boise State?
I think offense as a whole came tough. So you kind of see that in every aspect of the offense. I think foul trouble definitely didn't help with Tomislav being out a lot, because we would have liked to get him while he was doing. He started the game off hot. But yeah, I mean, they posed some challenges with their size for sure that led to us maybe not being able to get it inside as much. But yeah, ultimately it was just kind of a struggle all around, I feel like, that night.
Is their size the one thing, or do they do something else that they're I think right now they're 16th in the country in defensive assist rate. Teams don't get assists, so ball movement isn't good against them. Wyoming's number 1 in the country out of 365 teams. What did these two teams do? Is it just size that these two teams do to kind of prevent that ball movement?
Yeah, I think it's size, and you can strategize different ways. You can be in gaps, and you could give up passing and shooting, or you can stay attached to your guy and make guys try to make plays. And that's where you see low assist numbers coming from, when you have teams that stay attached to their man. I think we combat that a little bit better by moving the ball, cutting a little harder, doing some things that we're supposed to do. But yeah, ultimately, I think it comes down to us and how we execute our offensive strategy.
You 80% addressed my follow-up here is how do you guys combat that? Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how good of a team is this Lobo team in having to go one-on-one and maybe creating the shot on your own sometimes, which is what they kind of force you into sometimes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we are really good at it. I think it wasn't a case against Boise of us necessarily getting bad shots. It was just not making some open shots that we had, and that's going to happen. Unfortunately, it's a sport where it's going to happen. There's games where you're going to be off, and unfortunately, it happened in a game that was a big opportunity and on the road. But I think we're very capable of creating our own shots and making our own shots, and I think we're going to be better at that moving forward.
Luke, Jake, and Uriah struggled a little bit offensively in that game. They've kind of struggled kind of last 4 games, at least shooting the ball from deep. What's kind of been your message to them as one of the leaders on the team?
Yeah, they're both really good players, and they're both very confident in themselves. So, it's nice for me. I don't have to say a whole lot to them because they're locked in still. They know we have ultimate confidence in them, and they're going to keep shooting it, and we know it's going to go in.
Yep. And then looking ahead to Wyoming, they got 2 dynamic guards, like you mentioned, Osmeyer, Leland Walker. What are the challenges of defending guys like that?
Yeah, guards they're quick and they can shoot the ball, so that's always tough because we kind of give up some 3-pointers, as you guys have seen throughout the year. So just making sure we handle our rotations properly and really key in on them. And they have a lot of other good players too, so it's not just going to be those 2 completely running the show, but we got to make sure we kind of shut their water off early.